So what I'm going to talk about is how to rename a very large schema in a very short space of time. So I still can't believe that after this many years of using Oracle that there is still no rename schema command. I can't understand why they've not brought it in. You'd think it's just a simple metadata update. Surely everything should just be referencing the user ID, so all you need to update is the name column essentially in user dollar, but no, that feature's not available. So if you want to change the schema name, you generally have to do a full export import of the schema, which is fine as long as the schema is small. That's only going to take a few minutes. But as soon as the schema starts getting really large, that becomes impractical to do that. And for one of our applications, we have a live database that's about 2 terabytes. When that's exported and copied into the test environment, that shrinks to about 500 gig. But we have 100 copies of that. And each one of those has to have a different schema name. And those refreshes are done probably 3 or 4 times a week. So it's really impractical to do a full export import all the time to get the schema name you actually want, because you can't use the same schema name without having 100 databases, which is just, in terms of the hardware we've got, that's not practical. So we've actually got a smaller number of databases and multiple schemas inside them. So how do we go about it? So I'm basically building on a feature that's been around for a while, since 10.2, I think, with Datapump. No, sorry, 10.1 with Datapump. You can use Transportable Tablespace to do this. So it's kind of Transportable Tablespace with a little bit of Datapump tweaking to do the schema rename. So here's how you go about doing it. So in my example, I'm going to say I've got a schema called Daily, and I'm going to rename that schema to App Schema, and that's 500 gig. So how do I go about doing that? So first thing to do, standard Transportable Tablespace thing is, assuming you've already done the check that everything's kind of self-contained in that tablespace, is make the tablespace read-only. Then we do a Datapump export of a TTS export of that tablespace. So you can see the command there. You just dump out the daily tablespace. And in my example, actually, so I probably should have said that the daily schema is completely contained in a tablespace called daily. That doesn't have to be the case. That's just how it was for me to keep it simple. So when that runs, that creates a fairly small file. You can see the output here. So it chugs away pretty quickly. How long did that take? So that took just over, well, 2 minutes exactly, pretty much. So it's dumped out essentially the create table commands and basically an extent map of where those tables and indexes are located in the data files at the bottom. I'm using OMF at the bottom there, but that's not really relevant. And you can see I've created a dump file there called stage 1 with just that content in. So that, at the moment, that is just physical objects that relate to that schema. We've still got all of the logical objects which aren't actually in the tablespace. They're contained in metadata in the system tablespace. So the next stage is to then extract those logical objects. So here you can see I'm ignoring tables essentially, apart from there's a little quirk where, of course, temporary tables aren't actually physically stored in the file, and the Transportable Tablespace export does not extract them. So we manually extract the tables in that step there, just the temporary tables. And then we include all of the other objects that schema owns. I think I had to do it that way because I needed to include role grant and system grant to make the import easier later on. If you just kind of include or do the exclude the other way around, it creates problems, and you have to do it with the include that way. So now that runs away, creates another file, stage 2. You can see the output there. So again, that's just essentially just dumps create function, create package, all of the create statements you need to build all the logical objects. So quick recap, we've got the stage 1 file with the TTS definition, the stage 2 file with the all of the logical objects, and then the actual data files themselves. Right, now it gets a bit nervy. So this is assuming you're not actually moving from a different database, you're keeping it in the same database, just renaming it. So first step, tablespace offline. Now this next bit you don't have to do, I was just paranoid. So I just move the files out of the way, then importantly drop tables, and importantly keep the data files. So it doesn't actually remove them automatically, especially with OMF. Then I move them all back. And so you don't have to do that, I was just paranoid the first time I did it. It works fine without doing that stuff. We then import the logical objects back in, mainly because we need the schema there first to then be able to do the TTS import afterwards. So that runs away, loads everything in. You get loads and loads of errors. In this particular case, the schema's got thousands of objects. You get loads of errors because all of the tables don't yet exist, so nothing can basically compile, because pretty much everything's going to have a dependency on the table somewhere. Then, once we've got the logical objects in, we then do the TTS import, and the key bits here is the very last line. You kind of pretty much ignore the rest. So you're saying, these are the files that contain the tables, the indexes, but actually I don't want to call it daily anymore, I want to call it app schema, and I want to remap the table space as well. That runs away. As you can see, that took only, what, four and a bit minutes, and I think most of that time is actually statistics of the tables and the indexes rather than anything else. And that's it. Some final tidy at the end. Just make the table space read-write. The TTS by default puts it in read-only. A quick switch to make the schema to pop table space and quota to the new one, and then recompile everything. It's done. Schema renamed. As simple as that.
So you need outage?
Yes, because of the read-only. Yeah, I think if you needed to do it without outage, you probably have to use streams or something, and probably maybe do it back on itself if it's got to stay in the same database. Then it gets pretty complicated. In the simple case, it's actually in 2 or 3 steps. It's actually pretty quick. Because in our case, if we do a full export import of the schema with just a renaming data dump, it takes 13, 14 hours. To do it this way it takes 10, 15 minutes.
If you are doing this every day, it's not easy to...
It's scripted, so the script's now around this. But yeah, it's every day. Don't get me into a discussion about why we've got 100 copies of the same thing, but that's just that's the way the developers and testers choose to work. And just one last point, the original schema is still there. It doesn't got any of the tables or indexes associated with it because they were dropped when we dropped the table space, but all of the logical objects are still there. If there was a final target, we'd have to drop the daily schema. That's it. Done.
One quick question. Any questions?
Yeah? Sorry.
You're running it as sys.
No, I wasn't. No.
No? So, okay.
I'm doing it as I'll go back. So I'm just doing just slash, which is Opstar Oracle in our case, so it's an OS authenticated account.
Right.
Yeah, because it's an easy way of not having to have passwords in all these files. You just say, yeah. Yeah, it can be done as any account with DVI rights. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, back.
Probably it does not matter, but when you after you do that, what happens to the file names belonging to that table space? Do they get renamed? Or
No, not in this case. So although they were created originally in OMF, it doesn't matter. We plugged them in with that name. That's the name they stick with. Yeah. No.
Does it have any impact on embedded?
Yes. You'd have to copy the data files over, I guess. Yeah. The TTS wouldn't work directly with DataGuard, but yeah, you could fix that relatively easily. It wouldn't be automatic. Anything else? No?